Are we ready, Madam Clerk? Good? Sure.
Yep.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it is 6:30 on the dot. We're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to start with a brief invocation and a pledge. So if you're able, if you could join us by standing. We're going to start with the invocation. Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for the people you have gathered here today. Thank you for this community. Thank you for the families and everyone who lives here. Please bless the children that go to school in our community. And please bless this council as we make decisions, guide us, and help us to make the best decisions for this community and for our neighbors. We ask this in your son's name we pray. Amen. Amen. All right, if we could start to say the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'm going to start the meeting as I always do by calling the roll. We're going to go in order of the district. So we'll start with District 1, Councilman Tim Sullivan.
Present.
District 2, that is me, Michael Coper, I am present. District 3, Councilman Kyle Shields.
Present.
District 4, our Mayor Pro Tem, Michael Rudnick.
Present.
And then District 5, Doug Ingram.
Present.
Okay, Madam Clerk, if you could notate all 5 are present. All right, the first item on the agenda tonight is the consideration of the meeting agenda. And I do want to say this, because this is a special called meeting this evening, there will not be any public comments. So our next meeting is May 8th, and we'll have them then. Is there any items on the agenda, any errors or omissions?
No.
All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the meeting agenda as stated.
All right, thank you, Councilman Sullivan. We have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call a vote. All in favor? All opposed? All right, by a vote of 5, tonight's Mulberry City Council special called meeting agenda for April 29th, 2025 is hereby adopted. All right, that brings us to item F, action item number 1. It says consideration of resolution 2025-0436. Mr. Riley, are you going to present this, or Jamie? Or
Nope. Very, very briefly, we're introducing a resolution for the council that's going to indemnify the planning commission as they have indemnified themselves. That means that the city would defend them if they were sued on any action that they had taken in furtherance of their job in the planning commission. It tracks the language that had the indemnification for the council.
okay, is there any questions about resolution 2025-0436?
Yeah, I got a quick one. This is just planning commission, not appeals board yet, because we haven't appointed them. Is that
That's right.
correct? So we'll have to do that.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, hearing none, I will make a motion to adopt resolution number 2025-0436. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on this resolution? Hearing none, I'll call a vote. All in favor? All opposed? All right, it is unanimous by a vote of 5. Resolution 2025-0436, dealing with Planning Commission indemnity, is hereby adopted. All right, that brings us to item G, which is the second read of ordinance 2025-04-142 pertaining to urban camping. Mr. Riley?
Yes, very briefly, the second read on our urban camping ordinance we discussed a little bit on last time. I would ask you, though, to amend that to the extent that it defines the public parks as city parks, and since we have not gotten the parks from the county at this point in time, I'd ask that you'd add city and county and municipal parks to the definition of public park, and also to the definition of I'm sorry, there's a second definition in there also. Um,
I think it's in the definitions and then under section 2442, public parks, it would
Yes,
say
thank you. Thank you.
strike out owned by the city, is that correct?
Well, I would say owned by the city or county.
Okay,
Just we do anticipate that we would have parks at some point in time, and this would take care of it if and when we do.
okay, so we have ordinance 2025-04142 with a proposed amendment. Is there any discussion about the amendment first, which would be, under definitions, public parks would include all municipal parks, public playgrounds, public plazas, attractions, and monuments. We would add in municipal or county parks, that's
That's
correct? And then the other proposed amendment would be in section 2442. It would say owned by the city and the county. Any discussion about that amendment?
Or county, I believe you're gonna say.
Or county, thank you. Any discussion about that amendment? Okay, hearing none, I will make a motion to amend the proposed ordinance 2025-04142 as discussed. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call a vote. All in favor? All opposed? All right, by a vote of 5, the amendment passes. All right, any further discussion about this proposed ordinance as amended? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance 2025-04142 as amended. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilman Shields. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call a vote. All in favor? All opposed? All right, by a vote of 5, ordinance number 2025-04142 is hereby amended. All right, that brings us to our second set of action items, part 2 under H. The first is a consideration of a Muni Code proposal.
So, I just want to say this, Joy's going to actually give the presentation for this one. I know all of you know Joy, but just for the record, Joy has been operating as our assistant clerk, more as our executive assistant to the entire city. She put this proposal together and has been doing wonderful things here for the city, so I wanted to give her the opportunity to present her work to you all.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Joy.
Thank you.
All right, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I will be presenting a proposal for the City of Mulberry to adopt codification services through Municode. We will address all questions at the end of this presentation. Now to get into it, codification refers to the process of arranging codes of ordinances in a logical and organized manner. These services will help streamline the city's legislative documentation process, as well as provide staff and the public with online access. Currently, the city clerk has been managing critical tasks while also uploading ordinance documents to our website, and as we grow, this process may become difficult to maintain in a timely manner, which could also lead to rushed errors or delays upon upload. By implementing Municode, we will remain efficient, consistent, and the community will have up-to-date online access to our codes and legislative changes. To deliver shared understanding, this proposal recommends that the city use Municode to maintain up-to-date and accurate code information. These services would include the republication, supplementation, and online code hosting. Please refer to the handout to review the service details, which are also on the backside of the proposal page. Now we can get into the cost breakdown, which will include the one-time fee for the republication of our UDO, as well as the annual renewable fee for the supplementation of our codes. Within the Muni Code codification packet, the larger packet y'all have, you'll see a breakdown of what each service provides and a few add-on options and tools that we might be interested in using later on. Muni Code additionally has also offered a 25% discount if the city adopts the services before the end of April. For the first year annual fee, it would come to $6,428 versus the original $8,570. In addition to this 25% discount, they have also offered 3 different options for billing. We have the first one being an initial payment deferred for 90 days, the second option being 100% due upon signing, and that last option, 100% due at 120 days. If you all would please take a moment to review the items that you have received regarding Muni Code, and if there are any questions at this time, I will defer to Mr. Jameson Palmer to answer the questions.
Great job, thank you. All right, is there any questions about the Muni Code proposal from the council?
Quick question. The pricing for this, is that standard government pricing? Or?
It is. It's standard for Muni Code. That's just a proposal for a government of our size. A lot of what we started doing this for to look into this is because, like Joy had said, right, we were spending a lot of time with open records requests, phone calls, as well as, time getting on the website to put all our ordinances on there.
I agree.
Muni Code is kind of a centralized place that the entire country has been using. And so if you go to the Muni Code library, you can click on the state and the jurisdiction and pull up all of the ordinances and policies for that jurisdiction that you're looking at.
Yeah, it's a
Right.
phenomenal resource.
And so this would, in our mind, from staff, reduce staff's time that we spend on open records requests or anything of that nature. We can put it on the website and have a link on our website to go there to try to find ordinances, as well as when you look at our website and how it's structured right now, all that space that's there where we're uploading it, we're now answering questions about what chapter it's in. Versus on Muni Code, you could do keyword searches. So they can go into Muni Code, pull up Mulberry, and then just type in excise, and then it pulls up everything from every chapter that includes excise or alcohol or anything that they may be looking for. So it's not how we have it structured down to where you have to click on every PDF to pull it up to find it, but you can just do a keyword search through them, and then it also helps with staff when we want to compare what we want to build an ordinance on to another jurisdiction and how we can commingle an ordinance.
And my last question is, are there renewal options for subsequent years?
I do not know that answer. We can definitely look into
It
it.
says it's an automatic yearly renewal,
Yeah.
unless you give 60 days notice, so.
Does it say a price increase?
It says a 2% price increase.
5%.
Is it 5?
5% increase,
Yeah.
beginning in this year 2 of your contract.
Yeah, so it's a 5% increase per year, and it auto renews unless we cancel.
Now, when we start looking at add-ons or different things like that, a lot of it has to do with upload time, speed, that kind of thing. And so part of this is, we can do it at this rate for uploading everything for 6 months, and then we would have certain things upload later on. And then they give a certain structure for if we were to change our fee schedule, different options of that nature. But again, this is just a centralized place to where anyone across the country could go that's interested in our city.
Okay, thank you.
I'll add this too, is that as kind of the attorney of the group, this is kind of the gold standard for the ordinances. This is they're pretty much accepted by most cities, and it makes the searching the ordinances very easy for both, in the legal world, but also to members of the community, right? There's no ambiguity. They just go in, like Jamie said, they type in a keyword and it tells them exactly what our ordinances say. So I share that desire to make it simpler for our constituents. Any other questions or comments?
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Civic Plus, that's who we're also doing website stuff for, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, so the idea is that it's all kind of easy
They're
and
two
fits together.
They're two separate wings, right? So originally Civic Plus was doing, websites, things of that nature. Muni Code the Muni Code library was its own thing. A couple of years ago, Civic Plus bought the library, and they became kind of one, right?
Gotcha.
But in a sense, right, it's two branches of the same tree, but ideally they would hopefully work together.
Some benefit.
Yeah.
And and the cost savings that you went through this, so it's just freeing up folks' time, right? So we can be able to focus on other things.
We have,
A long list of tasks.
we have spent a tremendous amount of staff time.
Yeah,
Primarily Chandler Faith answering open records requests that were basically very simply could have been answered if we had a central source that could do keyword search.
so the difference today, somebody calls in, there's this long process of trying to help folks answer because we don't have this tool. Tomorrow, they call in and they can kind of self-serve, right?
That's it.
Okay, got it.
And then I would also like to add on the Civic Plus breakdown of the payments. You'll see the fifth payment for MuniDoc subscription, we would be removing that. Unless y'all decided that's an option that we would wanna keep on there. But Chandler Faith and I have spoke, and as of right now, we don't think that would be needed.
Can you say that again? I'm sorry.
The MuniDoc subscription on that first page of the Civic Plus breakdown, we would be removing that. Cause I don't think we would need that, as of right now. That extra 400.
If we decide that, because we are starting to develop a pretty large repository of documents and information, if we decide later that we do want that, does the cost change?
I do not believe so. There's different options for how much space we're getting, so it would be differentiate off of the,
Gotcha.
how much we need.
Okay.
So are you requesting that we remove that item from the proposal?
This is the proposal that they gave me, and then we would need to remove that, and then also figure out if we go through with this, how we would want the payment method to be, and then we could get y'all the proposal, with everything teed up.
We would like for you all to base your decision on the ability for the amount that's already in the proposal, or a lesser amount. So then that way that can give us the flexibility to negotiate that out, as well as allowing staff to choose the payment method.
Right.
I saw the initial investment was 12.3, and then annual was 8.9. But you mentioned the first year being 6 something. Is the initial term more than the subsequent years? It's on the very last page of the Civic Plus.
It's my understanding there's a first year cost to put the UDO together, so to do that, so that's why the first year is more expensive.
Yeah, and at some point, as Mr. Riley was mentioning to me just a second ago, it's required for us to do the codification, right? So, doing it this way, we can go ahead and get it, we'll pay the bulk of it up front, right? And our annual, fee will be reduced, and then we'll get a 25% discount, by trying to get it done before the.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. One more question. Do we have any, on this MuniDocs side, do we have any idea currently what the size of the documents that we've amassed in terms of minutes, agendas, resolutions, budgets, et cetera?
1 second.
We're below the first tier threshold, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know.
I
That's really, I guess maybe the question to you, Jamie, would be, this is all about ease of information and access, both for us as well as for citizens. That percentage as a percentage of budget, it may already be in there. Are we saying it's already in the budget that you're requesting?
The MuniDocs, yes.
Oh, it is, okay.
It is in
Yeah,
it.
okay.
If
So
y'all
it's-
want to remove
so
it, we
then,
can
as
though.
long as we author, or as long as we vote affirmatively to the budget, then you guys can.
That's
figure
it,
out
yes,
what's
this proposal that's put together is based upon everything that we feel that we need
Gotcha.
immediately. And then once we go start looking at renewals, or if you all see or something, or we think of something that would need to be added on, then outside of the annual renewal, we would look at that adjustment and bringing that proposal back.
Got it. Understood. Thank you.
Any other questions from the council? All right, hearing none, let me make sure I got my motion right. So I will make a motion to adopt the proposal at the cost provided and allow staff to determine the payment method at their, whatever they feel like is best,
As well as scope of services.
as well as the scope of services that are listed in this proposal. That's
As a price not to exceed.
Yeah.
okay, at a price, let me try that again. I make a motion to adopt the proposal with the scope of services as presented, with a cost not to exceed the amount as presented, with the option for staff to elect the payment that they see best fit serves the city.
Yes.
Good, okay, do I have a second on that motion?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call a vote. All in favor? All opposed? All right, by a vote of 5, the motion is hereby adopted. All right, moving on to our next item. We're gonna move on to action item part 2B, which is a consideration of CPL's proposal for completing the comprehensive plan. Ms. McQuaid is here tonight. I will turn it over to you. Thank you.
And before Sarah starts, wanted to say that, we've been having lots of discussions about a comprehensive plan. This fits with other actions that we've been working on inside of the city. The June 30th date to get some of this information to DCA is approaching upon us really quickly. And so, again, in the interest of staff's time, we are trying to get a proposal to you all from CPL so that we can get some additional staff from them to try to get that to DCA in a timely manner.
Yeah, so great to be here tonight in front of you, Mayor Council. As Jamie stated, this is a proposal for the comprehensive plan update. It's a DCA requirement as part of the planning requirements. And so our proposal is to work with the city and DCA's requirements that would qualify it as the appropriate document to have that completed by the June 30th deadline. So their minimum requirements include sections about the community goals, needs and opportunities, a community work program, so a list of things for staff to tackle, a report of accomplishments, which is what you have accomplished thus far, so, and then the land use element, which will provide a future land use map and character areas that will help guide the policy for the future growth of the city. There's also a public participation plan and component that's required as part of this. DCA requires a minimum of 2 public hearings, as well as a community meeting, and then steering committees. There are 3 steering committee meetings proposed, and that'll satisfy their public engagement requirements. Let's see, so as part of this, this will be your first comprehensive plan. I believe, Jamie, we anticipate doing a more in-depth and full-blown version, but this is so we can satisfy those initial state requirements. So we will be using the Gwinnett plan as a foundation and then tailoring it appropriately for the city.
I do want to add just a little bit to that, right? So in the creation of the city, we had to adopt, just like the zoning that came in with the properties initially, we had to adopt Gwinnett's comprehensive plan, right? So those details dictate how zoning happens, how land use happens so far, because that's the requirement. We're now that we're in this position, we're now trying to create our own so that we can say that we have our own land use plans, and then there's some things that have to gel with what the county's plan is, right? So having extra eyes to make sure that all that meets what the DCA requirement is gonna be big, because now we can have dedicated staff from them to solely focus on that to meet that deadline that we have pretty much about 3 months, so.
Proposal-wise, the cost is $10,000. We should be able to accomplish with that, but if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions from the council?
I have a quick question there. The community participation, will CPL lead that, schedule that?
Yep.
Will that primarily, I know it might be prognosticating, but taking place here at City Hall, is that an ideal location?
So it tends to vary. A lot of times City Hall is a location. If you want to spread out throughout different parts of the community, we'll use either community facilities, churches. But as far as the public hearings, they will be held here. They'll be held during a council meeting. And then the community meeting, we could coordinate as appropriate.
Yeah, I know this is an initial one, but I'd just like to get as much public advertising as we can about that to get participation.
Yeah.
Do you feel comfortable with the timeline, like you guys can meet and get all the requisite feedback?
I don't think you have a choice, do you?
Well, and part of this too is we've been working on putting some of the, outlining some of the bones of this, right? This comes in with when we start looking at what the requirements are for some of the zoning that we've talked about, some of the character areas that we've identified as far as like where, a potential civic space may be, where a potential downtown Mulberry may be. All of that we've outlined so far and what the citizens have already talked to everyone about, right, just needs to be kind of put added more details to, and then put inside of a plan that's acceptable by DCA. And so that's kind of where it's like, okay, now that we have this outline of what we want, lot sizes to be, what we want, architectural standards to start to kind of look like, putting that in the plan is where we just need to really dive in and focus and have additional staff to, kind of crunch that out. So timeline wise, we're a little bit ahead of the curve. It's really just putting it together.
I have one more question. So I see there's scope changes in here. I guess let me be more precise in my question about your comfort level on so you quoted a price,
Mhm.
but there's language in here regarding scope changes or additional changes in kind of the parameter.
Yeah.
Do you expect it will significantly exceed the dollar amount with scope changes?
I don't foresee it. I mean, if those would come back before you for approval, so it wouldn't be able to be done without coming before you, but I don't anticipate it. That's kind of just, giving us that opportunity.
Sure. And given other work with other municipalities, do you generally find there's large changes in scope?
No, I don't think there should be, not for the type of update we're doing for the city. Sometimes examples of subcontractors would be like someone to do GIS capabilities. If we don't have that, we do have GIS, but like if we couldn't accommodate it. Sometimes translation services may need to be provided, so sometimes that's through a subcontract. People do sub out sometimes the public participation, but that's not something we plan on doing. I think it just gives us that flexibility to explore it if it's needed.
Gotcha.
Um,
Thank you.
Yeah, no
And not
problem.
to add too much, right, but part of this too is, this is just the first plan,
Sure.
right? We may ask you all to do an update to kind of do a deeper dive on this next year. But this is again to start to move away into a vision of Mulberry and not what was required for us to adopt as our initial charter as Gwinnett's plan.
And for those that are here, DCA, we keep using that analogy, that's the Department of Community Affairs. That's a state agency that requires us to submit this document periodically. So for those of you that have been hearing that, wondering what DCA means.
And every city and county has to submit something every 10 years with a 5-year update, but they give new cities 6 months to get them something.
Any other questions from the council? At this time, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to adopt the CPL proposal for a comprehensive plan as presented.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilman Ingram. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call a vote. All in favor? All opposed? All right, by a vote of 5, the proposal from CPL regarding the comprehensive plan is hereby adopted. All right, that brings us to our next item, which is item C, consideration approval for city funds insurance and authorization of the same. Mr. Palmer or Mr. Eller, are you gonna talk about this one?
Yeah, I didn't see Steven in the back, so I'm gonna let Steven present it because he's been working with our bank for it. But this is simply just a proposal because the bank is doing some changes, not us, but Steven.
So this would pertain to the Mayor and Council. This item pertains to First American Bank and Trust, who is our banking institution that we've been very grateful to work with. Missy, who is the vice president at the bank that we coordinate with the most, had provided the advice of pledge document that secures the city's funds that are in excess of the FDIC limit, which is $250,000. By state law, any funds that we have deposited with them in excess of that amount needs to be secured. And because our deposits will fluctuate and our balances will change over time, that kind of requires on their end some mechanics where they have to pin or kind of change the amount that they have securing that. And so what they are electing to do at this point is to utilize the state of Georgia's secure deposit program. It's an SDP. And that is there in place to have pooled resources where that can be more seamlessly managed. And so really from our end, as she's explained to me, nothing changes. It's just our funds will be secured and it has to be, anything in excess of the FDIC limit has to be secured at 110%. So that will still happen, but they just want to be able to utilize the Georgia SDP. And so the mayor's signature on the release of advice of pledge will allow that to take place.
Any questions for Mr. Allen?
So I guess technically this is in lieu of having 12 different bank accounts with 250,000 in each one across the spectrum. It's a single lump sum,
Exactly,
because that would be the alternative, right?
exactly.
Any other questions? All right, hearing none, I will make a motion to adopt the First American Bank and Trust proposal pertaining to with the pledge pertaining to the, what's it called, Mr. Eller, state, what? I'm
The
sorry.
Georgia SDP, so you'll be signing the release of the advice of pledge.
Yes, so the release of the pledge for the state SDP. Do I have a second?
You got a second?
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call a vote. All in favor? All opposed? All right, by a vote of 5, it's unanimous that the release and the pledge for the state SDP is hereby adopted.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that brings us to our next item, which is the consideration and purchase of phones for the mayor, city council, and city clerk.
Hi again. So, we've been working on getting city cell phones for, the city clerk as well as mayor and council. We have gotten the contract put together. You can see the quote inside of what the monthly billing will be for, those additional phones, for the city per month. It's right around $380 per month. And, this is just kind of approving that so that we can move forward with getting the phones, getting the lines activated, and then getting them to you all.
And this will come with emails and stuff configured already, or do we have to do that?
We will work through the setup with that with you all, but we'll add your email addresses. Our IT department will add your email addresses to it, as well as the go-to meeting app. And what that does is here at City Hall, right, we don't have desk phones. We have the go-to app, which allows for us to answer our desk phones as well as our cell phones, and kind of on the same device. And so that way, if a citizen were to call you all at your desk line, or if you were to give out your city cell phone number, then both of those would be linked and they would ring on your phone.
Any questions for the city manager?
Just a whiny one. Does it have to be an iPhone?
We
Is
can
there
look at yours
alternative?
changing to be an iPhone.
I'm just not an Apple fan.
I understand. And the way we set this up was we went to AT&T and we said, hey, we government entity, we want the emergency services lines, we want the cheapest phone you got. This is what they gave us. But we can modify it if you.
Well, if it's the cheapest, I'm all for that.
Okay.
I'll live with it then.
Can you comment on that too, just for the members of the public that might be wondering why do they need cell phones? Can you talk about the emergency services line? what
Yeah,
that
so
is?
AT&T provides what we call FirstNet services, and it is kind of like your emergency response type cell phone stuff. So, most municipalities use it, fire departments use it, police departments use it. It's just a way to where if there were any kind of emergencies that were happening, then those phone lines would be the first ones up so that we can have emergency communications for emergency management style.
Thank you. Any other questions from the council? All right, hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to adopt the contract with FirstNet/AT&T as presented.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilman Shields. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call a vote. All in favor? All opposed? All right, it's unanimous by a vote of 5 that the FirstNet contract and quote proposal is hereby adopted. All right, that brings us to our next item, which is item E under action item part 2, which is consideration of resolution 2025-0437, a resolution amending the moratorium adopted on January 3rd, 2025 for right-of-way encroachment permits.
I'll just go ahead
Okay.
and do it, right? So, we still have some moratoriums in place that we're looking at lifting, and as, things come up, we'll work through lifting them. One of those being, we started negotiating our franchise agreements with our telecommunications. It was realized that we still have a moratorium on right-of-way encroachments. This affects, all of our utility providers, and, that affects connections for them to bring on new customers. So, now that we have gotten some franchise agreements in place with, some of our, telecommunications providers here in the city, we wanna lift that moratorium, so that they can start connecting new services to citizens.
Any questions for Mr. Palmer about Resolution 2025-0437 pertaining to right-of-way encroachment permits?
I have a tangential question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So you mentioned the easement connectivity of citizens, so if there's fiber being laid down 324 and other places already, what does that mean? Does that mean they've just maybe not understood the process, or?
Yes, to a certain degree, right? So.
I'm just curious.
Yeah. Usually, the way this process works is, right, they have to already have had an encroachment permit
Okay.
from the county before the city started that they did not use yet,
Okay.
right?
Gotcha.
Or they, have been waiting to make that connection.
Gotcha.
So,
So for planned connectivity, stuff like that, they may have already pulled permits and whatnot.
correct.
Gotcha.
Right now, all of that will kind of come through us. So, I'll use this as an example, right? If someone wanted Comcast service, but they didn't have Comcast there, Comcast, if they didn't already have an encroachment permit inside the right of way, would have to come get one from us.
Okay.
And then they couldn't even apply for it to us to review because we had the moratorium in place. So lifting the moratorium would allow for Comcast to now say, okay, well, you are eligible for service, and we can set up a time to try to connect or for them to run lines to,
Gotcha.
potentially gain more customers.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? All right, hearing none, I will entertain a motion on this one.
Make a motion to adopt resolution 2025-437 as presented.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Do I have a second?
Second?
Thank you, Councilman Sullivan. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call a vote. All in favor? All opposed? All right, by a vote of 5, Resolution 2025-0437 pertaining to right-of-way encroachment permits is hereby adopted. All right, that brings us to the first read, item I of ordinance 2025-04-143. I will turn it over to Mr. Riley for this.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the first read of an ordinance on aggressive solicitation. It's part and parcel, goes with the urban camping that you just passed. This is the first read on the aggressive solicitation. This is one that you're entitled to solicit for, or beg for alms under the First Amendment, but there are certain limitations to that, and that's what this ordinance does. If you said no, they can't aggressively follow you, they can't ask a second time. If you can't beg within 15 feet of the entrance to a financial institution, ATMs, you can't beg on the public streets, you can't beg in other public areas that have been tested and are appropriate for us to have limitations on. What this does is this. As you probably, if you travel in many areas, you see them on the corners of the highways, and they're stepping out in the street and trying to beg. Well, this is the methodology you use to control that, because it's a public safety problem. We're using an ordinance that's been a tried and true, so we're not stepping outside the bounds of what has already been approved.
Any questions for Mr. Riley? All right, hearing none, that will conclude the first read of ordinance 2025-04-143. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the next item on our schedule, which is item J, which is executive session for the purpose of discussing pending litigation. Before we do that, tonight's gonna be a little different than maybe our other nights. So we are gonna return, we have 2 final ordinances that we plan to discuss, emergency ordinances that we have on the schedule. But the open meetings law does allow us to go retreat and be separate and discuss pending litigation that is pending. So we are going to do that right now. So this, if you'd like to, this is a great time to leave. If you'd like to stick around and hear us talk about the 2 emergency ordinances at the end, you could do that as well. Do we know where we're gonna go for?
We'll cram in my office.
Okay. So we're gonna go. So just, y'all are welcome to stay seated, sit tight, or like I said, this is a good time to leave if you don't want to stick around and hear the last 2 emergency ordinances. So at this time, I will make a motion to go into executive session. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Any discussion? All right.
Mayor, may I make an inquiry? That is for litigation purposes.
For litigation purposes, thank you. So I will make a motion to go into executive session for purpose of discussing litigation.
Second.
Second, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call a vote. All in favor? All right, it's unanimous at this time. We will go ahead and go into executive session. We will be back, okay? All right, thank you. All right, at this time, I will make a motion to end the executive session. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, end the executive session for the purpose of discussing pending litigation. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. All right, any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? All opposed? All right, it's unanimous. The executive session for purposes of discussing pending litigation is hereby concluded. We're gonna move on to those last two items, action items K, part 3. First one is emergency ordinance 2025-04144. Mr. Riley, I'll turn it over to you on that one.
Thank you, Mayor. We've prepared an emergency ordinance for your consideration on appointing a fire marshal for limited purposes. You've probably got the updated on it this afternoon that we added the language to make sure that it included that we acknowledge that this person would, in our ordinances, be the functional equivalent for the limited purposes of a county fire marshal, since we've always contemplated that the fire department would give us those services. The unfortunate thing is the fire department has made decisions that they do not want to follow the state law nor the charter as it is provided for, and are no longer going to do fire marshal services. Now, I will tell you that the intergovernmental agreement in other cities, the fire agreement, wherein they use the fire department and the fire funds that are paid from the special service district pay for the fire marshal services. Not only the fire marshal services for arson, but for inspection and for review of plans. And they are refusing to do that for the citizens of Mulberry, notwithstanding we're paying the same monies, and we have not claimed fire services as one of our services that we are going to provide. So they're picking and choosing what fire services they wish to give our citizens. And although we pay the same amount as everybody else, other cities get those services paying the same amount. I think this is simply a tactic at this point in time where the county is trying to avoid their obligations and skirt the laws that exist in the state at this point in time. But the purpose for this ordinance is to allow our citizens to continue in commerce. We need to have a temporary fire marshal who has the ability to do tent inspections, so we can have temporary tents for some events that were planned for the city and then within the next week or two. So we'd ask that you go ahead and vote for this limited purpose fire marshal, and it's only for tent inspections. It does not extend to anything else at this point.
Mr. Riley, quick question from me, just a clarification question. I mean, the Gwinnett County Fire Department, they are still responding to 911 calls, right? So if our citizens call 911, they are still doing that. This is a limited scope for the fire marshal, just dealing with inspections pertaining to tents. Is that correct?
That's all we're doing at this point in time, but I
Okay.
don't believe that the fire marshal is doing anything else for us either at this point. And we may not, in terms of any kind of administrative things that they have to do. You know, it's beyond it's beyond belief that they would go any further. They are picking and choosing winners and losers in this thing, and they're it appears refusing to provide these ancillary services to make it uncomfortable for our citizens is a political determination.
I would like to, sorry, Mr. Riley, I'd like to give you all an example of one of the things that we've been dealing with on the staff end. There has been services that, for plan review and other things that, you know, fire marshal was supposed to do. Citizens have asked the fire marshal's office, they have kicked that to the community development department and Gwinnett, not the fire department, and said that that Mulberry has community development, so they're not going to provide that. Like Mr. Riley was saying, there are some services that, you know, other cities are getting that Gwinnett Fire Marshal is actually doing for them, but it's being routed a different way when it comes to some of the situations that our citizens are requesting from them. So this is just one of the things that we are attempting to do, the main thing that's going on right now, is that we can't try to find a way to resolve within working with CPL on our community development services is the issuance of special event or tent permits. And so that's why we were requesting that for tent permits for some events that our businesses want to have in the next coming week, or, you know, events that private citizens want to have in the next upcoming week, that can still go on and happen.
Like I said, I just want to clarify for those that are watching that this deals explicitly with the administrative side of fire inspections. That
That's
I don't
it.
want anybody watching this in panic that the fire department's not going to show up at their house, right? I mean, you have not heard those complaints.
No.
That has not been an issue,
No.
correct?
Fire department's coming from a standpoint of, you know, if there's an emergency, they're still coming.
Sure.
I
This,
just-
go ahead, I'm sorry.
I have one quick question.
No problem.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Ms. Riley, or to you, Jamie, has there ever been a specific statement made by maybe the fire marshal of Gwinnett County
Yes.
that indicates their rationale for not provisioning the service?
I paraphrased an email that was forwarded over to us
Okay.
because we have heard this from a number of citizens for a variety of reasons, for different things, and we just asked that they start sending those to us in emails. And so they have now been making those requests via email and then forwarding those emails over either to myself or our planning department.
But what's the statement that's been made, like just an example?
The example that I gave, the statement was that, oh, this is a fire, you know, this is supposed to be reviewed by the fire marshal for plan review. They said, oh, well, this
Is now a
in the
service.
chain, it was forwarded over not to the fire marshal, it was forwarded over to the community development director, and then the community development director made that decision. We have also had citizens go out to ask and request for inspections, for sprinkler inspections or anything of that nature. Those things have not been provided. But again, we will address that later, as other things may happen over the next couple of weeks that will kind of, you know, hopefully get us and the county on the same page. But right now, with some pressing things that our citizens plan on enjoying in the masses, we want to go ahead and make sure that those events still happen within the next week.
So then basically, excuse me, we may come back to this and add additional scope.
That is correct.
Okay.
But over the next 30 days, we want to make sure that we have something in case someone wants to get this done.
I don't mean to keep going down this thread, but I'm just trying to make sure I understand. Has it been in writing that they're not gonna provision the service?
Yes.
Or
Yes.
It is.
We
Okay.
have copies of emails that
Got
were
it.
sent to citizens that
That
say
say,
they will not provide the service.
okay.
Yes.
And refer them to us.
Got it.
Notwithstanding, Peachtree Corners has a community development department. Peachtree Corners pays as part of their fire agreement. The fire department does the inspections, the sprinkler inspections, they do the plan reviews, they do the tent
Sure,
inspections, they do all of it.
gotcha.
Now, fire marshal works in the community development department. And when they do plan review.
Got
But they're still the fire marshal, they're still segregated, they still provide fire marshal services for other cities that have community development, and they're refusing to do that for us.
it. Okay.
Have there been events that have not been able to take place because of this?
Not yet.
But that's the urgency, and that's why.
There's one that's going to happen next week on May 5th. Yep. And then there's one that is going to happen this weekend as a private citizen. There are a couple other things.
Okay,
So
all right. Can I make a motion?
Let me make sure there's no other questions or discussion before we do that. I just want to say, go on the record and say that, you know, obviously it's very disappointing that the fire marshal would be willing to do this for other cities, but not for us. I mean, obviously that's, it's just very disappointing. Hopefully we can work something out. We're here, we'd love to talk to the fire marshal, we'd love to figure something out, but unfortunately, you know, this is where we are and this is the necessity we have to deal with. So, I'll entertain a motion at this time.
I'll make a motion to adopt emergency ordinance 2025-4-144 as presented.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilman Ingram. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? All opposed? All right, it's unanimous by a vote of 5. Ordinance number 2025-04-144, an emergency ordinance to establish a temporary fire marshal for limited purposes in the city of Mulberry, Georgia, is hereby adopted. All right, Mr. Riley, that brings us to emergency ordinance 2025-04145. I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and council, this is emergency ordinance to establish a temporary grease trap inspector. Here again, this is another one of the issues that we are finding ourselves in. This is really something that should be inspected by the water and sewer folks over at the county, and they're refusing to do this. And so we have a new business that is trying to open up, but they can't get a grease trap inspection from the county. In this instance, what we have done though is we have, because it interface with the county system, what we've proposed is we don't hire an inspector, that we have followed the plan that is in place with Gwinnett County, that they have a group of third-party inspectors who are qualified to do the inspections. And so we have, if you'll see in our ordinance, that we have it where that if you are, you have to be, number one, qualified as a inspector already, as a third-party inspector for Gwinnett County, and that you have to follow the rules and regulations of Gwinnett County in the inspection process. So what we've done is we've just said, you can be our inspector too, under a third-party process, but in order to be ours, you have to be an inspector, third-party inspector for Gwinnett, and you have to follow every protocol that they have. And we're doing this so as to not put anybody in a place that they were doing, anyone would say that we're doing anything different than Gwinnett would if they were inspecting their own grease traps. There are other issues that are gonna come up, but at this point in time, this is the issue that we have. And I don't anticipate that we would be hiring one that people would use as a third party. As in Gwinnett County, third-party inspectors are actually paid by the persons who are being inspected, so that there's not gonna be a cost to us, but it gives our citizens that opportunity to move forward with the plans that they want to have to open new businesses. So I ask if you feel that that's appropriate to pass that also.
Any questions for Mr. Riley?
Just a clarifying point. So in the case of the ordinance we just passed with the temporary fire marshal, that's a very real scenario where we're kind of double paying now, right? There's a special use, there's a scenario where our tax dollars are going to Gwinnett County to pay for that service for the
Yes, sir.
fire marshal. Now we're gonna double pay because the city's gonna have to hire somebody to provision that service. In the case of this new ordinance, the grease trap inspector, or temporary, I should say, although we may not be double paying, it's still a scenario where we're slowing down business in the city, we're creating friction. Okay, I just wanna make sure I understood.
Well, that's what they were doing, because they.
Correct.
They would not come inspect, and they would not, they said it's not our duty anymore.
Right, the absence of having that capability from the county is creating friction,
Absolutely.
potentially jeopardizing a business's ability to open, creating cash flow issues.
Any new restaurant that opens up that has grease has to have a grease trap inspection,
Yep.
right?
I just wanna make sure that was clear to everybody,
And-
myself too, so.
Yes, sir, and it's real, because we have a new restaurant waiting.
Yeah,
And that was the impetus for us to get this done, because we were not looking in the abstract.
yeah,
We have people who have their real dollars, their real lives hanging, waiting, and we're seeing Gwinnett County playing them as pawns.
sure.
I do need to add this comment, right? This isn't just because we saw one incident. We have 3 restaurants that are waiting to open, but they're having issues with trying to get their grease traps inspected so that they can get
Yeah.
approval to move forward. So this is an ongoing thing that staff has been trying to work through and find ways to get done, and similar to like we said with fire marshal services, right? We have asked them to, if they've said it to put it in writing, we've gotten these responses in writing in an email,
So,
that they're just not gonna do it.
So in both cases, we have it in writing that they're, so in this case, like you said, right, I mean, there's a lot of these restaurants that have opened in the city, and I know the council shares my opinion on this, which is, those businesses have a right to be successful in the city and to not be constrained. And not being able to open for 2 or 3 weeks because of some government bureaucracy is really quite unacceptable. So I hope that the county will help us to get to a point of resolution on this. Okay, thanks, appreciate that. Thanks, Mr. Riley.
Mr. Riley, one more question from me, just for clarification purposes. Is this water and sewer grease trap inspections, is this also performed for other cities in the county?
I can't answer that question. I didn't do the research on that one.
I can. So, we went to Gwinnett County's website, and everything that's kind of outlined for third-party inspections on grease traps is on their website. So we pretty much just copied their standards and put it in an emergency order form and allow for the same people who are approved by them to come in and do those grease traps for the next 30 days.
Okay.
But I will follow up on your question as to see if other cities are getting that use. And I am satisfied they all are, because because water and sewer is part of the service delivery strategy, and that
Sure.
would be something that would be within the purview of the county, because this is their end of the game.
I mean, I don't know for a fact either, but I would tend to agree. I would think that this probably is performed for the other cities as well. So I was just curious about that fact. Okay, any other questions? Then I will make a motion to adopt emergency ordinance 2025-04145, which is an emergency ordinance to establish a temporary grease trap inspector position in the city of Mulberry, Georgia. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call a vote. All in favor? All opposed? All right, it is unanimous by a vote of 5. Ordinance 2025-04145, which is an emergency ordinance establishing a temporary grease trap inspector, is hereby adopted. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that is the conclusion of our meeting this evening. Our next meeting is next Thursday, May the 8th. Like I said, should have public comments at that meeting, and we'll continue to take up new business, and then obviously some potential second reads of some of the other ordinances that you heard tonight. Thank you for coming. Please drive home safe tonight. So at this time, I will make a motion for us to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilman Sullivan. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call a vote. All in favor? All opposed? All right, it's unanimous. We're hereby adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Drive safe tonight. Yeah, no,
Okay.